Hello, hello, and welcome to Saturday Soundbites. I'm your host, Veronica Sofer, and here on Saturday Soundbites, we talk about all things visibility strategy, marketing, public relations, advertising, networking, and all the components that make a really strong visibility strategy. I am bringing you some phenomenal guests every week to help you grow your business and to help you make an impact with your brand and the direction you want to go. So if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe. We don't want you to miss any episodes of Saturday Soundbites. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, drop us some comments and my guests and I will connect, especially if you catch us on the replay. Just hashtag replay and we'll circle back with you. With that, we're going to go ahead and get this episode started. Let me welcome my amazing guests today. We have Leah Biscarde joining us. Hello, welcome, Leah.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here and basically talk to you and your audience about all things marketing in the photographer space.
Perfect. This is exactly what we needed to hear. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously, you're a photography expert. So give us your background and some context before we really get into the nuts and bolts of your tips today.
Sure, it's a long story, so I'll keep it as short and simple as possible. I'm a former educator, actually in the science background. So a lot of people are like, well, what makes you a photography expert? So I've actually been a photographer for 10 years. I started out with landscape and animal photography, shifted into portrait photography, and then in the last couple of years or two, I've been working with product photography. So I've kind of shifted from teaching adolescents science to teaching adults about digital and visual marketing.
I love it. And that's such an important part of a visibility strategy, especially when you're thinking about your advertising or your marketing. So I love that we're having such a technical conversation. So tell us about some of the basics. What are some things that people need to be thinking about as they're working on their own marketing, their own strategy, especially if they're doing it themselves?
Of course. And I want this to kind of resonate with everybody. So when I talk about this, this can be applied to any business, whether you're just a professional, you sell tangible goods, or you sell digital products. I think people really need to understand that the statement or thing you should think of before posting anything anywhere, whether it's print marketing, digital marketing, or just talking to someone, it's all about stopping the scroll. And I'm from a generation where we love being on our cell phones and scrolling and scrolling. And the problem with that is, as a business owner, you really need to stand out because everybody's on the social media. If you think about it, when I was a child, print media was huge. So to stand out, you just had to be really reputable and people had to just know your magazine or know your newspaper. But now everybody can jump on a computer, log in, and create a profile and start marketing to people. So I think the three basics are conversate with your audience. So people might think, well, I'm just posting a photo or I'm just posting a video. How is that conversating with my audience? And it's because you have to really know your audience. So even though I'm a photographer, I need to know the background of the photo I'm taking. So people are like, what does that even mean? I go, well, do you want to portray that yourself as a very professional, very stern person? Do you want to portray that your product should be used to everyone, specific people, kids, adults? And they're like, really? You can use photos to do that? And I think people don't realize that just taking a picture and posting it without a story behind the photo is really, you're just trying to market to everyone, and that's not very successful in the long run. You need to start with that targeted audience, and how you do that is market research. So you do your market research, you figure out what your people want, and I say your people because they're going to be following you around in your journey, and then you can start on your photo marketing journey.
Love it. That's such important. I love the pre-work that's done in that. And I love conversating. I think that's so important. What are some of the challenges with finding the right type of photography that you're going to use? I mean, I often see people use the same stock photos over and over. I hear people say, well, I don't have the budget for it, so I'm just going to use this royalty free. I mean, like, talk to me, Leah, about how to stop that from happening.
So one thing is, as being a photographer, I hate stock photography just because it's so boring to me. Because like you just said, it's using the same photo over and over again, and it's not conversating with your audience. Because say, for example, I always love talking about candle makers. Say, for example, you make a candle. Well, you can't post a photo of someone else's candle and then market to your audience that you're selling that candle, because then they're going to look at the candle and be like, this is not what I thought I was getting. But even as simple as, okay, putting yourself on a billboard, they know it's you because it looks like you, but saying things on that billboard that are not true, they're going to be like, well, that's false advertising. So stock photography is very similar to that. It's kind of like false advertising. And I think people, that's the number one thing. Well, I can't hire you right now because I don't have a budget. But then they'll spend maybe $500 a month posting in a newspaper that gets out to like 300 people, where if they just learn how to market themselves in the digital world, they can really help. And I think going back to your original question is, what can they do? Well, you pick 3 topics, and those are the 3 things you focus on. And it depends on what type of business you run. So if you're an entrepreneur that sells services, you have to focus on you, the product, and the why. So, for example, if you're a service person, you're not just going to say, hey, I'm a social media marketer. I have these services. If you want to work with me, DM me. That's not how it works, because there's 100,000 social media marketers that they can pick from. What makes you different? So you have to do the authentic thing. So when you're taking pictures, they could be really super professional, but they have to be authentic to you. Like, for example, I did a brand photography shoot for myself, because photographers always forget to do that.
Right.
And I did silly things. I jumped in the air. I was laying upside down, because that's who my personality is. I'm very, very loud, obnoxious, and that's who I am. So I portrayed that through my professional photos. Whereas if someone's very introverted, they're not going to have that loud, obnoxious picture, but they have to be true to themselves so their audience is true. And I could go through all the different steps, but I know we have limited amount of time, but it's all about picking 3 topics, and then everything else with your photos fall under those topics. It's kind of like content pillars. If people
Yeah,
know
no. Yeah, that makes complete sense. That does make complete sense. And I'm so glad you talked about investing. What are some resources that folks can start looking at now to learn how to be better photographers? I know, I mean, I've seen a few YouTube videos. I'm not a photographer by trade, but I know a few, and I know that there's an art to it.
Yes.
And then, but then there's the science to it too. So how do you help folks at least get the technical parts going so that they can start bringing some of that authenticity and some of their personality into their photography that impacts their marketing?
Well, I think it's important you said the basics. So
Yeah.
you can only go so far with Google, because everyone's different. Everybody understands things a little bit different. Like for me, I didn't go to school for photography, but I've been doing it for 10 years, and I've taken courses under photographers and learned their way, and then learned another way and tried to see the different angles. So Adobe, which is a whole creative cloud content, they have Lightroom, Photoshop, all of these other things I could list, and people might not even understand what they are, but they have a lot of free courses that you can take. And I really tell people that you should start with the basics. So YouTube is a great thing, but also just getting to know what you know and what you don't. So like I do market research all the time, and people are like, I don't know how to help my lighting. And I'm like, that's like the basics of a photo, is how to do the lighting. So I think it's more of figuring out what you already know and what you need to add on to it. Photography is very different. So coaching is the best way. So if you don't want to invest in someone to do the photos for you and you want to learn, a photography coach is a thing. Like I actually do photos for people, but I also teach people, because some people just like doing it their own self, or can't ship me their products, or it's really hard for them to really do things quickly. So they want to do it themselves. So hiring a coach, if you're not going to invest in someone to do it for you, at least invest in someone to teach you. Now, not everybody has a budget for that. So I think YouTube Academy, I call it. Udemy is a very good resource as well. And if you just go to Google and put basic photography skill videos, people will really just see all these videos that can teach them how to do simple things. But you have to be specific, because you'll go down a wormhole, and that's what I call it. You can spend hours on top of hours on top of hours, and it's like, oh, I got to learn this and I got to learn this. Sometimes just doing it is the best way to learn. So you take a photo in your head and you're like, okay, I want this to work. So how am I going to get it? It's just trial and error. And then you just copy and paste it. And it is artistic, because people don't realize angles are important. Like right now, my dog is snoring, sitting right next to me in my chair. And when I take photos of her profile, her side is way more powerful and mean looking, but her frontal is cuter looking. So with a product, there's not like a cute side and a serious side, but really knowing your product, if you have a physical product, which side of it people really want to see. So that's why I tell people, market research. Post like 10 angles of a photo and say, which one do you guys like the best? And then they'll tell you which one they like the best. So that's just learning through trial and error. That's the best way to do it, honestly.
That's a great idea. I love that. And I love just kind of that A/B testing, what works, what resonates with you, and how to make it better. So let's talk a little bit about captions, because that's the other part of what, obviously you have a visual message,
right?
And words are important. Words have power, as do visuals. But the combination of the right caption with the right image, it can just really change the trajectory of the message you're trying to convey. So talk to us a little bit about captions.
So I always tell people, this is the part where you have to put the icing on the cake. Okay, so think back to what I said. Stop the scroll. So people stop scrolling, saw your awesome picture that you did. Now they're going to read the caption. And we all know that most people don't read the caption. So you need to find a way to kind of sneak them in. So it's that typical defined formula: hook, value, call to action. So you need to hook them in with that first little line. And I think that's really important. And I always tell people, please don't start with the line, do you want to buy this? Because it blows my mind that people think that's the way to hook people in. People don't want to spend their money on just random things unless they're in a very emotional state. And that's a whole nother conversation for another day. Emotional buying is something that I know women do more than men, but it happens both ways. But you have to hook them in with something that's meaningful to them. So you have to put yourself in their shoes and think what they're thinking. And I keep going to this, and people don't realize this is important. Market research really does help, because if you know what the buyer is thinking, you'll know what to tell them so they feel like they're drawn to that. So I always go back to my candle example. The caption cannot say, here's my blah, blah, blah caption or candle. And it has this scent and this scent, and it's great for this. To buy it, DM me now or use the link in my bio. It's okay caption, but what you're really doing is saying, here's my product, go buy it. And you don't want people to feel like that. You want people to feel like they are being helped. So your draw in is, did you know? And then you do question mark. Then you say, candles can help with blah, blah, blah. And I'm not a candle expert, so I'm not even going to fill that in. And then at the end says, what does this candle make you feel? And that's not, and people are like, nobody's going to buy it that way. Yes, they will. Because if you say enough in that caption that captures their essence or their emotions, they will say something, they may buy it. Because people are emotional buyers. They will always be emotional buyers, but they want to buy something that they think they need. So
yes,
it's the thing that people are like, do I really need that? It's like every time I see a commercial about life insurance, I'm 29 years old. And I'm always like, I don't need life insurance. I'm too young to get life insurance. Then I get thinking, I'm like, they're right. You know, you never know when something's going to happen. And that's that emotional pull that they have on you. And that caption is where you bring that emotional pull. So people say, well, how can I do that with my picture? So the same thing, your caption has to be emotionally pulling. So does your picture. And that's why people really have to focus on visual storytelling and written storytelling. So I think that really gives you an emotional draw to your post.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that makes complete sense. And I see it happen better on some platforms than others. So I loved how you tied that in with a real example of a candle. So give me, Leah, some examples of don't do's. What are some of the things that you see people doing that you're just like, no, don't do that?
Yeah, there's so many, and there's so many, there's so many. And this is my opinion, but I mean, a lot of people will agree with these because whether you've been in business for 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 years, 30 years, people will always look at something and be like, I don't know why they're doing that. So I'm not a great graphic designer. I love taking photos. I will take photos all day. That's my thing. But anytime someone says, make a graphic, I'm like, oh. So what I tell people is, the less is more. So you don't need to edit a lot. You don't need to add filters. You don't need to add all these stickers and extra text and everything. Less is more. So one of the big don'ts is if you're going to take a really good picture and you're trying to, even if it's just of yourself, the more filters, the more editing, the more presets you put to a photo, the less authentic it is. So I don't think people realize that, but I saw a meme before and it's like, this is what celebrities look like without all their makeup and their hair done and all this stuff. And you see like it's a huge contrast. Well, the reason why people are shocked by that is because celebrities are adding makeup, adding filters, adding all of that stuff that doesn't make them feel authentic. Now, some people love that. I'm not saying you don't have to put makeup, you don't have to do your hair, but when you take a picture of a product or yourself, less is more. And the biggest way to think about that is if you're going to the grocery store and you saw in the commercial that all the fruits and vegetables look all nice and shiny and perfect and there's no imperfections. And then you go to the grocery store and there's like, this one has a brown spot and this one looks like it's bruised. This one looks like it's thrown against a wall. You're like, well, this sucks. But if you show them what it actually looks like, they're not going to have super high expectations, so they won't be disappointed. And I don't think people make that connection. So that's the biggest don't I tell people. And the other thing is, don't post photos just because you want to post photos. You want to post, you want to talk, you want to conversate with your audience on their own terms. So everything is for them. So if you do a market research and you say this photo or this photo, and a lot of them love the one on the left and you're posting the one on the right, that's not going to drive any traffic to where you post that photo because you're going against what your ideal customer wants. So I think the biggest thing is less is more. And that really pulls on people. And that's just my opinion. But as a visual storytelling expert, I think it's a huge difference for people to post something more authentic than less authentic.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's really good advice. What are some of the differences that people need to be thinking about if they're a service provider versus a product provider? I mean, I know you do a lot of product photography, but you've done a lot of other portraits and branding. How do you distinguish between what you need when you're in those two different spaces?
Right. So the biggest difference between service providers and product based businesses is obviously in the product based world, it's more people are buying the product. As in the service provider world, they're buying a service, but they're basically buying you at the same time because you're the one offering the service. So when you are marketing your business, you need to decide if you're more of a product based business, it should be 80-20. So you should be posting 80% of your photos and your information is your products, and 20% should be about you because they still want to see the human behind the product. Whereas in a service provider world, it's opposite. 80% should be about you marketing yourself as an expert, you marketing yourself as an authentic human being, and marketing yourself, and then 20% about your services, because it's back to that push and shove. You don't want to keep pushing your services on people because they don't know who you are. They want to build that know, like, and trust. And it's the same reason why 20% of your posts or pictures as a product-based business owner should be about you so they know exactly who they're buying from. And the best example I can give is if someone portrays themselves as a pushy person and they're posting very, very limited about who they are, I feel sketched out by buying from them.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I don't know who they are, what they do really. I don't know how they're going to act in person. But if they really like showcase videos about them drinking coffee, showcase that they have a dog, you feel more drawn to them. It's that emotional response again.
Yeah. No, I think that's really great advice, and those are really good numbers for people to be thinking about. What are some of the trends that you're seeing in photography on social media? In other words, what do you think is working well right now, and what do you think is not working well?
So, what isn't working well? So, if we focus on Instagram, which is a big platform, obviously, they're kind of shifting from a photo sharing app to a short form video app, which all of us photographers are getting ticked off about.
Yeah.
But the huge thing for that is progress. So, a big thing is showing, if you're a product based business owner, showing what the product looks like before it's finished and then the final product, because people are really invested in how to's, like how to make this or how to make that. And that you can see that with TikTok. Like the latest commercial for TikTok is hashtag TikTok taught me how. And
Yeah.
that's the progress. It's showing people you get from A to B, this is how you do it in a short time frame. That's huge on all platforms. So video, but also photo. Like you can do it with a carousel. Like here's the starting point, here's the middle part, and then here's the last part. What people are moving away from is those very authentic shots, which is totally against marketing rules. So like people, like a lot of big companies are using very perfected photos, a lot of Photoshop, a lot of like extra tech in it, really, really enhanced. And the problem with that is little businesses can't compete with that, because in order to have a photo shoot or a video shoot with all those enhanced tech forms, it's going to cost them a lot of money. So small businesses are trying to go against that and be more authentic to compete with the bigger businesses. So you're going to see a huge contrast between big brands like Amazon and
Sure.
Best Buy and Target, where they're very perfected. And then you have the small businesses that are more authentic. And that's one of the things that's really hard for small businesses to handle, is because they're trying to copy the big brands when really they need to stand out. And to stand out is to be different and authentic. So that's the sad part, is the pandemic did that, because a
Yeah.
lot of people went from brick and mortar to online. So now they have more competitors online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that I can totally see that. All right, last piece of advice that you have for folks before we find out how to work with you a little bit more. What's one thing that someone needs to do right now today to start making a difference with the photos that they're using in their marketing?
Think before you do. I know that
Ah,
sounds very, very vague, but think before you do. And I think that's a huge, huge thing behind my core values, because don't just post just because, don't just take a picture just because, don't rush it. Because if you have a true, authentic following, no matter what platform you are on, if you have true followers, they will be patient and they will wait, because it's really important. You don't have to get it just right. I'm not asking you to do a perfect picture. Nobody is perfect. That's the best part about being authentic. But really thinking about, is that photo going to show what you want to show? Does that caption really capture people's attention? And why are you posting? So, what is the reason? Are you trying to sell a product? Are you trying to tell people more about the product? Are you trying to tell people more about you? Are you trying to get collaborations with big brands? I think it's really important that people think before they do, because there's so much that can come from that. And
mhm.
I know it's a very vague term, but I think it really sums up what I feel as an entrepreneur and what other entrepreneurs are going through, because you're really focusing on what people want. And that's your true core of your why of running a business.
Oh, so true. That is great advice. I love that, Leah. All right, tell us how people can work with you. You've talked a little bit about actually doing products and some of the other services and some coaching, but how can people really dive in and access you and your expertise?
So I do a whole bunch of things. So the best thing to do is, if they can see the screen,
Yep.
chromephotoco.com is my platform. It has everything. I speak on different topics. So if you have a Facebook group or you want me to go live with you, just like I am with you, and talk about with people and help with their mindset of photography, it's not just clicking a button and taking a photo. I do one-on-one coaching. So just like we were talking about, if you need just the basics, or you just need a little upgrade, but you don't have enough budget to do the do it yourself or do it for you sort of opportunity, you can contact me about that. I also help with the photo marketing part. So we talked about the captions and how important they are. So I also walk you through all three steps. So I help you with the photos, I help you with the captions, and I help you with the market research as well. So you can also get help with that. So I'm kind of touching all 3 points to kind of help you on your way out. So it's kind of like a 6-month program where I step by step either teach you how to do your own photos, or I do the photos for you and teach you how to market yourself.
I love it. That is a very, very helpful thing to have access to is a coach that knows what they're doing with as many years of expertise as you have. So thank you so much, Leah. It's chromephotoco.com. It's also in the show notes. I encourage everyone to reach out. Leah, thank you so much for joining us on Saturday Soundbites.
Thank you, Veronica, for having me.
All right, guys, that wraps up this episode. Let me just tell you that Leah dropped some fantastic, fantastic gems that you need to make sure you captured. Your visual photography, your visual elements, the captioning, all the things that come together to build a visibility strategy have to be on point. And when you have the power to get some market research done as part of it, you're really going to be able to see some traction in the work that you're doing. So I encourage you to take everything you learned today and put it into action, and then reach out to Leah if you need any support. All right, that wraps up this episode. If you are listening on the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe. We don't want you to miss any episodes of Saturday Soundbites. If you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, drop us some comments and Leah and I will go back and connect. And if you'd like to reach out to me, you can reach me at veronicavsofer.com and I will be happy to connect. And with that, we will wrap up and I will send you lots of positive energy.